Hello there, it's Jana from The Last Stitch. Sewing with knits can be tricky if you haven't done before, and I've done loads of mistakes during my years of sewing with knits. So today I figured why not talk about 5 things that I wish someone had told me when I started sewing with knits. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Before we get started, if you want to see more videos from me, please subscribe and also check out my blog, thelaststitch.com, where I get loads and loads and loads of tutorials regarding sewing with knits. But now, let's talk about those 5 things that I wish someone had told me when I began sewing with knits. Number 1. Stabilize those shoulder seams. You'd be surprised, well at least I was, how much the shoulder seam can grow when you're sewing with knits. It's cut on stretchy fabric and on the bias, so I guess it makes sense, but that's why it's so important to stabilize the shoulder seam, unless you want the shoulder seams to end up down at the arm. So there are many ways to do it. Clear elastic is an excellent idea that you attach to the seam. You can also use a stable interfacing. You can use stay tape, preferably with a little bit of a give, because on most stretchy knits a very stiff shoulder seam is not really desirable. And a 4th idea, which is basically a fashion industry insider, is to cut strips lengthwise of the knit fabrics. So as you know, knit fabrics are usually more stretchy crosswise but less on the length. So you cut strip lengthwise, sew it into the shoulder seam, and that's also an excellent idea to keep the shoulder seam stable. Some knits, they simply won't hem well. That's just how it is. Don't beat yourself over it, because there are actually ways to get around that. One idea, and perhaps the best idea, is to just add a piece of waist ribbing. You can either use self fabric or some kind of rib knit. Keep the sort of stretchy fabric in shape. So that's a great way of just dealing with those impossible to hem knits. Another idea, which I think that perhaps should be explored more among us home sewers, and that is to leave the edge raw. I know some of you, including myself, is sort of, nitpicky about the finishing, and that feels a bit odd to leave the hem raw, but if you look at a lot of high-end designer garments, it's not unusual to find raw edges on knits, both up here and at the hem. So if you can live with that and consider it as a design detail, I think that raw edges can actually work to the advantage of the garment in some cases at least. A 3rd option is to just accept that the knit will stretch out and work that into design feature. Namely, you can use sort of a roll hem or something similar and just let it to be bubbly and sort of uneven, curly. That's okay. I mean, on some garments, that is a look that will actually work. For instance, with rib knits, it can be a design feature. So that's a 3rd option when your knits simply won't hem with your normal method. And the 3rd thing that I wish someone had told me when I started is that stretch matters. Just because you sew a garment, sew a pattern with one type of stretch fabric, that doesn't mean that if you switch and use another stretch knit, it will provide the same result, because there are a lot of differences when it comes to knit garments, the amount of stretch. I mean, some like activewear garments and rayon licking, they can stretch like just basically 100% bigger when stretched out, whereas other stretch does have a lot less stretch. So you really need to accommodate that when you're sewing a pattern, and check out that the stretch is equivalent. And if it's not, then you will probably have to adjust the pattern, usually to make it a bit bigger if your fabric has less stretch. And my 4th tip is that it's okay to use weird things to make working with stretch fabrics easier. Whatever works, just go with it. I've used spray starch, I've used glue, I've used regular tape, I've used stay stitching, I've used basting, and probably loads of other stuff that I can't remember right now, interfacing, all that stuff. Just, if it works, then you use it. You don't have to be hard on yourself, because especially if you're dealing with difficult knits, when you're hemming or applying details like a placard and stuff like that, that isn't, it's difficult when the fabric is stretchy. Just do whatever you want that works. In fact, I've even done a video sharing a lot of these unconventional tips to make hemming on a regular sewing machine. So that's just do whatever works. That I recommend. And the fifth thing that I wish that someone told me earlier, and this might be a bit painful for some of you to hear, especially painful for the wallet if you don't have it, is that a serger or overlock, it really makes a huge difference when it comes to sewing when it's that's just how it is. I mean, you can achieve really good results with a regular sewing machine on most knit fabrics, but you just won't get the same professional result as you will with a serger. There are many reasons for that. One is that the serger seam is much more durable when it's stretched out. The finish looks much more professional than most of the stretch stitches on a regular sewing machine. And also, because of the differential feed on the serger, you can alter that to make sure that the fabric won't grow regardless how stretchy it is. You just adjust the differential feed. So yeah, a serger, it really does make a huge difference when you're sewing with knits. So that was my 5 things that I wish someone had told me when I began sewing. Now I want to know, what are your revelations about sewing with knits? Please share in the comment section. I would love to know, because as we know, knowledge is power, and that's what we're all about here, sharing our experience and become better sewists. Thank you so much for watching, and please hit subscribe if you haven't done already, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.